Hello and welcome to a Surge guide on how to D&D. I'm your host Action Surge and I'll be showing the ropes and slopes for everything you'll need to know to get hacking, slashing, and spellcasting. Also, side note, I'll be covering this using the 2024 version, and if you'd like a more in-depth guide, feel free to let me know. But first, what is D&D? D&D is a TTRPG, a tabletop role-playing game, where you and a bunch of friends and or strangers get together and go on adventures in a silly little place called Imagination Land. How does one get into Imagination Land, I hear you ask, my eager adventuring friend? With this ticket right here. Well, no, technically this isn't a ticket, but it's where everything gets started. The character sheet is made up of your class, background, species, ability scores, equipment. But Serge, I don't know what those are! Well, let's go through them and talk about your class first. Whether you want to be a big buff guy with big swords, doing big buff guy things, or a spellcaster that manipulates the weave to create miracles, this is where it happens. There's currently 13 official classes, and yes, I know there's the Blood Hunter, but I'm talking about the main classes from WotC. I see you there in the comments typing away. Okay? In any case, when you choose a class, you'll gain access to the class's core traits, which give you a bunch of proficiencies, the stuff that make you better at doing stuff, as well as your hit die, which sort of determines how much health you have, and also your starting equipment. You'll also get features that allow you to feel like the hero you were meant to be. For example, at level 1 the Barbarian class allows you to rage, making you a force of nature that does more damage and resists the more common damage types, essentially making you the Hulk. As you level up, you'll gain access to more and more features that make you stronger. Moving on, let's talk about your background. Your background lets you customize your character to who you're trying to be, with 16 options to choose from, whether you want to be Sherlock Holmes and be a master detective, or maybe even Luffy from One Piece and travel the 7 seas. This is where it's at. Backgrounds consist of 2 skill proficiencies, 1 tool proficiency, and an origin feat, and also an ability score increase. The proficiencies work the same way as they do in the class, and allow you to do certain things better. So with that out of the way, let's get into some origin feats. There are 4 origin feats currently in the game, which allow you to empower your character to do additional things, like casting spells, doing more damage, getting the initiative in combat, or gaining more proficiencies. Maybe you just want to do more things better. Long story short, do more things and be better at doing those things. Piggybacking off of that, ability score increase. Honestly, it's a small boost, but it lets you basically do things better, and I'll cover it more in depth once we get to the ability score part of the character sheet. But in short, you can increase your ability scores by either 1 in 3 separate abilities, or 2 into 1 ability, and 1 into another. Species. Have you ever wanted to be a 600-year-old elf roaming the plains of the Feywild? Maybe a gnome tinkering away in a workshop making devices and tools, or maybe even just a human living their day-to-day lives in a world full of magic and monstrosities. Well, you can do that. Currently, there are 10 official species in the 2024 version of D&D, all of which can affect how you play the game and the history and experiences of your character. The species can be broken down into their main traits, being mainly creature type, size, speed, and special traits. Most of these are pretty straightforward, so I'll speed run through the easy ones. Creature type, basically what you are considered for the purpose of spells and abilities. Size, this is easy, it's just how big you are. Speed, I mean this one is self-explanatory, but it's how fast and or far you can move in a turn. And lastly, special traits. Fabled traits that really make your character feel like you are the species that you are playing as. For example, Dragonborn, ancestors of chromatic and metallic dragons. They gain access to dark vision, which allows them to see in the dark. A breath weapon, which lets them breathe a cone or line, depending on their ancestry, of whatever damage type they choose. Once again, based on their ancestry. Whether that be ice, fire, or even acid. There's a couple other ones, but hey, it couldn't get much cooler than that, right? Wrong! They become resistant to the same damage type based off of their ancestry and take less damage from that damage type. And if that wasn't enough, bam! They can fly at level 5 for a limited amount of time. But to summarize, special traits are really good, and every race gets them. Moving on, ability scores. Hey you. Yeah, you. This is where we get some good stuff going. Come closer, this is important. Ability scores are where we specialize your character into being good at stuff. Similar to proficiencies, but this is the base of the character and will apply to everything. Ability scores can be split into 6 categories: strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. 3 of these stats being purely for physical, and 3 of these stats being purely for mental. We'll start off with strength, the Hulk stat. It determines how strong and athletic you are, and determines how much you can carry before becoming encumbered, making you a mass of bulging muscles. Or, if you don't invest in it, the villain from Glass. Alrighty, dexterity. Legolas enjoys, this is where you thrive. It determines how acrobatic and stealthy you are. Do those backflips, sneak into those buildings, unlock those locked doors and chests. Because God knows your party is going to get stuck on them. Doors are the biggest nightmare. Be that dexterous creature of the night. Constitution. Honestly, an important stat. Take more hits and be less likely to die. This stat increases your health and makes you take hits better than when your dad told you to get him another beer. Do not neglect your constitution, or you'll find yourself sitting in the timeout zone either temporarily or permanently. Not good. Stay alive. Intelligence. 2 words. Big brain. And not me. This stat is for all of the studious investigators and arcanists of you wonderful adventurers that pursue information. It determines how well you can recognize arcane symbols, investigate crime scenes, and remember history. It's normally used for wizards, so you can show everyone that books are cool. Wisdom, my dear old wise man. Wait, you're not old. You're just wise. This stat determines how well you can perceive things for what they truly are, whether that be 3 goblins in a trench coat or a lying politician. Druids invest in this stat as well as clerics. Charisma, the charm, the looks, the performance. Charisma is what makes a character truly excel in all these things, as well as proving that the pen is greater than the sword, if wielded correctly. Persuading, deceiving, and intimidating others into a more advantageous situation. For the most part, bards and sorcerers are the main users of this, as well as some paladins. I should provide a disclaimer. These descriptions are just a basic description that may be used differently in your personal groups, as there are other rules. However, for the most part, this should be some solid stuff to base your character off of. Moving on, stat allocation. Now that we know what stats we have, it's time to allocate the points to those stats. For allocating stats, there's a few methods that are accepted, but we'll be covering off the three main ones, those being standard array, point buy, and rolled. When allocating these stats, there is a cap of 20 maximum in any stat, until later on once you unlock a couple things. Standard array is the simplest, in which you have 6 stat values that you allocate to each of the 6 stats. These values are 8, 10, 12, 13, 14, 15. Put them where you want and enjoy. The second method, point buy, can be a little bit more complicated as you have 27 points which you can allocate to each stat. Each stat starts off at 8 and can have additional stats added for each point until 13, at which point any additional points cost 2 points. This can be until all 27 points are used up. However, there is a maximum of 15 before you have to stop. The final but personal favorite of mine is rolled stats, in which you roll 4d6 die and drop the lowest number. Do this 6 times and you have your stats to allocate wherever you like. Put them in there. Well, now that we've completed that, we'll move on to the final part. Well, almost final part. Equipment. This is a fairly easy part, and it's just based off of your class equipment and your background equipment. Alternatively, you could gain a set amount of gold and buy your preferred equipment. That was a lot quicker than the rest, but guess what? Congratulations! You know how to set up a character sheet, and with this, you have your ticket to Imagination Land. But Serge, where do I go from here now that I've got my ticket? You didn't tell me this much. Well, from here, it's for you to forge your own adventure. Go out into the world, find some friends, or even strangers, as long as you're being safe, and start up a group. Get started on those adventures. This is the first video of hopefully many. If there's anything that you would like me to cover, feel free to let me know and like and subscribe. Thank you.